At startups, you may not even have your customers yet. So you have very limited information to base your decisions on. You have to be really comfortable making judgmental calls with little or no information.
Welcome to Scaling Without Breaking podcast, the show for startup leaders who are done winging it and sick of everything being a bottleneck. Your team's growing, the cracks are showing, and what got you here is officially breaking. Each week, you'll hear raw stories, sharp strategies, and real talk from founders, operators, and advisors who've scaled through chaos and built companies that run without constant firefighting. If you're ready to start leading like a CEO and move beyond just surviving, you're in the right place. Here is your host, Roland Siebelink.
Hello everybody and welcome again to the show where we talk with startup leaders who were done winging it and remove the drag on their way to scale. I'm very honored with my next guest. She came to the United States as an immigrant with no money and no credit, the kind of financial invisible that the credit system was never designed to help. She went to earn a master's in mathematics of finance from Columbia, built risk management systems at Capital One and Deloitte, and became a founding or executive member of 3 Fintech companies that each reached billion-dollar valuations: On Deck, Lending Home, and Figure. But instead of staying comfortable in the executive suite, she went back to the problem that shaped her. And she built Kikoff, which has now helped millions of Americans build more than 240 million credit points, equivalent to raising every US adult's credit score by 1 point. And she just hit unicorn status herself. And just before this recording, she's been named a top female founder. And her latest bet is an AI that calls debt collectors on your behalf, so you don't have to. With that, everybody meet my guest, Cynthia Chen, the co-founder and CEO of Kikoff. Welcome to Scaling Without Breaking, Cynthia.
Hey, Roland. Thank you for the amazing intro.
Oh, of course, you have an amazing life to talk about. It would not be a service to our listeners to not inform them about that, right? Cynthia, you came to the US with no credit, went through the exact experience that Kikoff is designed to fix, and then spent 15 plus years in Fintech before actually founding Kikoff. Most people who live through such a broken system, they either adapt to it or they fight it. What made you decide to build a company around fixing it and why now rather than when you were at Figure or at On Deck?
As you mentioned, I came to the US when I was still a minor. I was 17 years old, first generation immigrant. When I arrived in New York City, I had no friends, no family, no money, and obviously no credit. All I had was 2 suitcases. When I arrived on Columbia University's campus, I was amazed by the fact that many of my American classmates were using credit cards to make everyday purchases, including books, but I was mainly using cash or later debit card. I got really intrigued by that because I grew up in a country where there was not yet a personal credit system. And started to teach myself about consumer credit. And the more I learned about it, the more I realized how difficult and expensive life would be without good credit. Obviously needed to lease my own apartment when I graduated from college because nobody would be my co-signer or guarantor on the lease. I had to buy my first car. If I did not build credit, I wouldn't be able to achieve that. So I decided to work on it. On my 18th birthday, instead of throwing a party, I spent the entire night sitting in the computer lab of my dorm building researching credit cards and magically applied for an MBNA student credit card for Columbia students and got approved for $500 of line. That was the best birthday gift ever and officially marked my entry into adulthood. As I worked for many years after college in consumer and small business finance, I realized that there were more people who needed good credit than I thought. I was working at lending companies. Every day we would decline tens of thousands of consumers or small business owners because they did not have good credit. And the associated with poor credit or no credit was very high. On average, if you had poor credit, your lifetime cost from higher interest and fees and the lack of opportunity to accumulate home equity because you couldn't get a mortgage is estimated to be $250,000. So after a pretty successful run in fintech, I decided to found Kikoff in November 2019 because I really wanted to help millions of consumers build credit, especially those who are new to this country or who did not grow up in the most affluent families where the parents could put their children on an authorized user credit card, or those who got overburdened with debt, especially student debt, who missed a few payments and then got their credit destroyed and needed to get back on track. And I look at the existing solutions in the market and found that they were either very expensive or not very user friendly in terms of the product design. So I decided to build something that hopefully would be 10x better.
I love to double click on that X that came up in a different conversation just the other day. When you look at competitive products, it's not enough to just be a little bit better. Most founders do say 10x better. Why is that in your mind?
Because incumbents already had the brand awareness. They had
Mm-hmm.
been advertising their products for multiple years,
Mm-hmm.
and they already occupy all the Google search results because of years of investments in SEO. For consumers to trust you enough to give you their most confidential personal information, including social security number, date of birth, address, cell phone number, you have to be better than the incumbent because you
Mm-hmm.
don't have the trust and brand awareness yet. So your product must be so compelling, must convert so well that you can even compete with the incumbents. One of the key reasons why we have been successful is very high product velocity.
Uh-huh.
Have very, very high expectations, and they also have lots of pain points. You need to keep innovating and introducing new products that can solve more and more pain points in their financial life in order to stay relevant.
Is that something you have to manage through a culture or through the people you hire? Or is that something that you task your CTO with? How do you actually establish and maintain that product velocity over time?
That is a great question. High product velocity is indeed a very important element of our product philosophy and company culture. When we recruit, we tend to hire people who demonstrate strong ownership and sense of urgency. And once
Mm-hmm.
you have those, then product velocity tends to be higher. We also encourage people to constantly think about new and better ways of doing things. That's why we run multiple hike weeks each year that are
Okay.
company-wide when we fly our colleagues over from other parts of the country or sometimes even other parts of the world, and they can work on any idea they have. And people are very enthusiastic about them. They actually work on multiple projects on average at each hack week. And a lot of our new product ideas came from hack week projects. For example, our AI debt negotiator was the offspring of a hack week project.
Excellent. Okay. And multiple hack weeks per year. That's a serious use of resources.
But it is worth every dollar spent on it because we got awesome product ideas, and also great for people to pair with someone that they usually don't have the chance to work with.
Mm-hmm.
So it actually makes collaboration cross functionally better post hack week. And better collaboration usually leads to higher product velocity because
Of
friction.
course. And I'm guessing higher employee motivation, people staying longer at the company as well.
Yes, yeah, it's a huge boost to team member morale.
That's excellent. What made you invest so much time? Because most companies only do like maybe 2, 3 hackathons of one day per year, if even that, right?
Mhm.
What was this something you took from one of your previous companies, or did you just gradually increase the time and see it returning on investment every time?
Some of my previous companies had hackathons, some didn't, and I definitely prefer those that had hackathons. And this is the first company I had worked with that had this many product lines. So
Mm-hmm.
it is more important for us to have a hackathon culture here because we do have higher product velocity.
You've been in business for quite a few years, and of course, you've also been through many changes in the previous companies you worked at. Part of that is that there's going to be some changes in your leadership team, your executive team, and you mentioned in the prep call that that's something you're going through at the moment as well, right? So, just in general, though, what makes you feel like you want to make a change to a leadership team? When does it feel to you like, okay, now it's time to make a call?
We are in a marathon, not a sprint, right? This is
Right.
a 6-year-old company and we are just starting. There's a lot to do. As much as we believe in very strong work ethics, we do want to make sure that we operate in a way that is sustainable, that will make people who join the company today want to stay here for 5, 10, or even 15 years. We are here to build a sustainable and generational company. In order to achieve that, we must ensure that people see a career growth program. So we will introduce career ladders, communicate expectations for each tier so that people have something to work on. They have a compass that will guide them into the higher tier. Or maybe if they don't want to get to the higher tier, if they'd rather become very productive individual contributor, that's just fine too. But that expectation and giving people a path to where they want to be is very important. And we do promote internally a lot. I think most of our senior leaders grew up with the company. We do bring in new senior talent as needed because as the company grows, we naturally just have more need for leadership. We need leaders who have scaled larger organizations before. Otherwise, maybe doing a disservice to our very talented team members.
Since you also just made it to unicorn status, I believe, congratulations.
Last year, actually, it was a year ago.
A year ago, okay, fair enough. So 5 years in, that's pretty fast, right? So I love that. So Cynthia, is it because you're growing so fast and because the requirements change so fast that sometimes a change is needed faster?
Sometimes, yes, because yes, we did grow very fast. When you grow fast, you may experience challenges that you did not really anticipate. So when we first started, we didn't really have a very well-defined career ladder because everyone just more focused on survival, product
Right.
market fit, making customers happy. Nobody really thought about the next level for themselves. So when the company grew larger, we had more folks coming and they would have different expectations because they may have come from places they were very used to a very structured career development program. So you have to meet them where they are. Your initial cohort would be people that you recruit from your network, right? They came here for you. They did not come here for a promotion, the next level, manage your responsibilities. They came here to work with you, to build alongside you and create something very special. And as you bring people from outside of the network, from a more diverse set of companies, then they will have different expectations and have to upgrade your talent management program to make it work for most people. We have designed a very good onboarding experience where expectations are communicated pretty early. And even before onboarding, during the interview process, sometimes we do the reverse sell. So we actually tell them what it's like working here, at what speed they need to move at. And it helps us and also helps the candidate decide whether this is the right fit. And there are people who are not used to the speed that we move at, and some of them choose to part ways early. And that's all normal. I think the key is that we make that message very clear to existing and prospective employees. We try to remove friction from the process and streamline decision making and empowering people with autonomy and independence. If people don't have to ask for permission every time, velocity will be higher. So we do that. We have more proactive communication on expectations, what can be done, what cannot be done. Very clearly tell team members that if you want to run a test, as long as it is legal and it is reversible, you should feel free to run something. Don't break
I
the law,
love that. That's
right?
such a simple rubric, right? For
Right.
people to
Yeah,
keep in
don't
mind.
break the law, right? Don't break the law. Make sure that if it goes wrong, you can reverse that. As long as those two boxes are checked, it's generally okay.
Excellent. Okay, I love that. That's also like a shortcut to a lot more delegation, I think, right? Which is often
Yeah,
challenging when you come from all the way from the founding team, and
right.
now you're almost 200 people now. I guess that was related to having been on the founding executive teams of these three startups before, On Deck, Lending, Home, and Figure, right? That sounds like more than luck, Cynthia. Like, what's your secret?
I would say a lot of that would have something to do with luck. Every startup that's successful had to have some kind of luck. And of course, luck is never enough. It is necessary, but not sufficient. I would say the secret part would be just really focus on customers. I single-handedly served as the only customer service person until we had reached Series A, and we had 30,000 active users when we reached Series A. It was quite a grind, but I'm glad that I did it, including taking random calls from customers who just found my phone number somewhere. I learned a lot. I think the learnings from those early days laid a very solid foundation for our product design down the road. Also just help form a lot of empathy for our customers. When you actually talk to them over the phone and you hear about their life, what the things they're worried about and what they are trying to achieve, you would feel a very strong connection, and you would think in very different ways how you could help them.
Is that something you still maintain to some degree? Like some companies have every executive serve as a customer service rep for a day, or have them go on sales calls or stuff like that just to get everyone in touch with the customer base. Is that something you've made part of your culture?
We've done that before, yeah. We've done this, what we call the Kickstarter support. We will have our team members who are not in customer service roles learn about a particular customer service topic and process customer service tickets on that particular topic. Yes, we still do that. And me personally, I still watch customer interviews. I listen to customer service calls, and also I look at our app reviews a lot.
AI, of course, can speed us up a lot, but there's also still issues with it sometimes being a little bit unreliable or not always producing the same result in every circumstance. How do you deal with that in a highly regulated space such as finance? And how do you deal with all the compliance concerns there?
This is a very heavily regulated space, especially when you are serving the underserved consumers who regulators really care about and want to protect. I think it's important that you invest in compliance. We work with a number of top-notch law firms to help us stay abreast of the latest development in rules and regulations so that we will comply. We also do regular compliance training. Every team member goes through multiple training sessions each year in things like fair lending, fair and accurate credit reporting, anti-money laundering, deceptive marketing, etc. And it is also important to invest in the right technology to automate certain pieces of the compliance process to make sure that we are tight with our compliance controls. And I think the rule of thumb is if you think this is something that is not good for the consumer, then don't do it, because that is really, I think, the most effective way of being compliant. If you are always making the choice that is more pro-consumer, you are a lot more likely to be consistent with what the regulators and lawmakers would like you to do.
So first you were at risk leadership at Capital One after being at Deloitte, right? And then you went into startup mode. So that's a fundamentally different way of managing, right? What were the big learnings in what were the things you almost had to unlearn from your earlier career before being successful as a startup executive, as a founder, co-founder?
Unlearning is startup companies, there is so much ambiguity. At larger organizations, everything is pretty well defined. There was a previous example. You don't encounter completely new, unexpected scenarios. And you are not expected to make decisions based on very incomplete or even no information. At startups, you may not even have your customers yet. So you have very limited information to base your decisions on. You have to be really comfortable making judgmental calls with little or no information. And because of that, you just have to be really nimble and be able to iterate very quickly. Because when you make decisions based on imperfect or incomplete information, or even no information, you are more likely to find out what you're doing is not right, and you have to change very quickly.
You were just named the Inc. 500 female founders, so congratulations. That is amazing achievement. What is the state for female founders these days in your mind? I know we can't generalize too much, but do you find it still harder? Is it different things you have to fight for than your typical male colleague?
The bulk of VC funding still goes to male founders. There is some increase in the amount of money going to female founders in the past 1 to 2 years, but a lot of that was driven by the fact that there are a handful of big AI companies like Anthropic that happen to have a female founder. If you carve out those handful of AI giants, the amount of money going to female founders is even less. So yes, there is still a pretty big gap between the two genders. And I certainly hope that more female entrepreneurs will be getting more financial support from venture capitalists.
Okay. And yeah, of course, can only support that, as well as your other example being an immigrant founder, of course, and having different backgrounds. That at least is something that I think is still supported very heavily by the Silicon Valley ecosystem, right? So you already mentioned that you grew up in China, came to the US at 17 with just 2 suitcases, right?
Yes.
Were there particular moments in your childhood, your teenage years, that kind of predicted you would be a successful founder one day?
A focus. I can really be hyper focused on one thing. There was this anecdote that I heard from my mom, which I don't even have any memory of, but she said when I was like 2 years old, or maybe at most 3 years old, I was reading a book at home. And when a neighbor passed by, he saw me and then he went on to do his things. And when he came back home, I was still there reading. And that neighbor was a pretty accomplished scholar. And he was so impressed because he's never seen a child so absorbed in a book for so long. So he was so excited and he went to my mom and said, wow, this kid is really, really special. She'll become someone that is going to be very successful.
What were your parents like? Were there particular adults in your life that really inspired you as a kid or a teenager, maybe even as a college student?
My mother. So I think she always encouraged me to try things that hadn't been tried by other people. The fact that I decided to apply for colleges in the United States. One was actually only 16 years old, was direct influence from my mom. I actually skipped a year in high school. I skipped my senior year in high school and went to college 1 year early. I didn't have a high school diploma. Sometimes I joke I'm a high school dropout.
Right.
When I do things like that, my mom is always a big supporter. She never says something like, oh, this is very unlikely, or nobody has been successful in this before. She's always like, if someone else can do it, you can do it too. And even if someone else has not done it, you can still do it. I think that was very important early learning for me. And that is still something that keeps me motivated as an entrepreneur.
So now you are a successful founder and an adult that may be inspiring many other younger, newer founders coming after you, right? What's the one piece of advice you would always give other founders in their own startup journeys?
Listen to your customers. If you can only do one thing, I would say is learning about your customers, not just about how they use your products, how they use other products, really about what are the things that they are worried about, the things that they are spending a lot of money on, the things that they are wasting a lot of time on. I think that's important. Know who your customers are and be able to think from their perspective.
Very good. Cynthia, this has been an amazing interview. Where can people find out more information about you, about your company? And is there anything in particular they should download or look up?
So everyone's welcome to check out our company's website, kikoff.com. It's KIKOFF.com without the C, just a case.
Yeah.
KIKOFF.com. You will be able to see all the cool products that we have built, and you are more than welcome to check out our career section. We are hiring a lot, and feel free to apply for those amazing job opportunities.
Excellent. And if somebody wants an introduction to Cynthia and they know me already, of course, I'm happy to oblige as well. Cynthia, this has been an amazing interview. Thank you so much for your time. And once again, congratulations on making it into the Inc. 500 Female Founders list.
Thank you for having me.
And for the audience, thank you again to making it to the end. And we'll have another not quite as amazing founder, but still a very good one next week again. So thank you for listening and stay tuned.
The Scaling Without Breaking podcast requires more than a conversation. It takes action, research, and collective wisdom. If today's episode resonated with you, we'd love to hear your insights. Join the conversation and help us shape the future together. We'll be back with more stories, strategies, and real-world solutions that are making a difference for everyone. In the meantime, be sure to subscribe, rate, write a review, and share it with someone you think would benefit from it too. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.